HVAC 360, episode number 34, AeroSeal. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of HVAC 360. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Matt Nelson. Here, we're kind of almost to the halfway point. Well, we got an odd number of interviews for the AHR Expo. I got 7 altogether. I'm a little bit hesitant to kind of release them all in sequence, just because, it's fun to be able to kind of get the environment and the feel and some of the products that are there. But I want to be able to intermix. If you're not all into that, I want to be able to give you a chance to learn something else. So I'm going to do AeroSeal this week. Where I had the pleasure to talk with Neal Walsh, who's the Vice President of Marketing and Sales over at AeroSeal. And then I'm going to kind of interject in here. I have a special guest coming up next week, so stay tuned to listen to that one. That should be a very good one. Well, they're all good, Let's be truthful here. So, AeroSeal, if you don't know, I'm not going to ruin it too much, is as the kind of name suggests, it's a way to seal ductwork. I think that Neal does a great job kind of explaining it to it, but I think that it was one of the things that maybe you need to take a look at, to see the setup a little bit better. They had a great display at the AHR Expo, and I had a lot of fun talking with Neal. So I'm not going to hold you back any longer. Let's cut to the tape. All right, we're here on the Expo floor, the AHR Expo here in Chicago, 2012, and we were talking with Neal Walsh of AeroSeal. How you doing, Neal?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, Matt.
Now, talk to me a little bit about what AeroSeal is, where it came from, when it started.
AeroSeal was invented in 1994 at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories. At that time, the Department of Energy estimated there was $5 billion a year in duct leakage across the United States. That number has risen to $25 billion today. Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories was given a grant to figure out how we could address national duct leakage across the United States. Out of that came the AeroSeal system. What it does is it seals up air ducts from the inside out. That way we can get to all the inaccessible leaks that were cost prohibitive to get to before. Now we can touch those. Now we can get air ducts very, very tight. We can save energy. We can make people more comfortable, and we can solve indoor air quality problems.
Now, I guess go through the process of, obviously this is a commercial and residential application. It really doesn't matter. Focusing on the commercial a little bit, I guess take me through the step-by-step process of how you go and apply the AeroSeal technology to a project.
That's a great question, Matt. It's a 5-step process. The first thing we're going to do is go around and block up all the supply side grills on the ductwork. Then we're going to connect the AeroSeal machine to the ductwork, and we're going to take liquid sealant, we're going to aerosolize it, and we're going to spray it into the ductwork. The air is saturated with sealant. As it goes through the ductwork, it finds the hole and develops the scab over the top of the hole, sealing it tight. We can get up to 99% of the air duct leakage out of the system. We test at the beginning of the process to create a baseline of leakage, and then when the technician is done, he tests at the end to get a final leakage.
Now, when you're blocking up the outlets, what are you blocking it up with?
We're using a high-density foam rubber and a compression fit to seal up the grills and registers in the building.
Now, is this something that you typically do, after the final diffusers go in, or when you want it with just kind of, bare metal, still being in place?
Matt, we can do it either way. We do it in a retrofit application. Sometimes we'll do it with the grills on. If it's more convenient to do it with the grills off, we can do that. Oftentimes when we're in a new construction application, we're just using compression fit without the grills on.
Now, what sort of, if you're thinking about getting the AeroSeal technology, how do you go about? Is it you use contractors? There's a lot of machinery that you would have, as far as pressurizing the duct system and distributing the aerosol. I couldn't even say it, the product into the duct system. So how does it? I mean, how do you go to market, so to speak?
Sure. We go to market through contractors across the country. We're looking for a select group of contractors that want to be in the business of sealing air duct. And the way we do that is we identify them in the marketplace and we sell them the product and we come alongside and train them. We actually spend 3 days in the field training all of our contractors, and then frequently we come back after the fact. Our technical trainers will actually work alongside our contractors on commercial jobs to make sure they can get it right. So it's very much a hand-holding process to make sure they're comfortable doing it. What they get is basically an entire business in a box. We provide them with everything they need to do to get into the business of air duct sealing. We even provide you with supplies to get started.
Great, and if you're having trouble trying to visualize this, I guess I think of it from a standpoint of maybe a fix-a-flat kind of mentality where it's where's that negative pressure is going, it just kind of shoots for the gap and fills it and becomes a solid.
Absolutely, Matt. It's a pressure testing device like a duct blaster smashed together with a paint sprayer, and it works exactly like a fix-a-flat. We're going to spray aerosolized mist into the duct. We're not going to coat it. We're just going to plug the holes.
Now, I guess from the, this is not, duct sealing, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. From a new construction standpoint, you could apply mastic to it. You could, do, various different, you could weld it if you wanted to. I guess what makes this AeroSeal product, I guess better than those technologies?
Because we're using computer automated process, we're going to get the ductwork extremely tight. 99% of the leakage is going to go out. One thing we know, Matt, about existing ductwork, there's been studies done at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and the Florida Solar Research Institute that shows the average ductwork in commercial buildings today is 3 times leakier than the SMACNA spec it says it should be. 3 times leakier. We can take this machine and we can connect it to existing ductwork that normally you couldn't reach. You couldn't get to the inside of it. It might be wrapped, and we can get 99% of that leakage out, and it's going to work 5 times faster. There was a research study done at Oak Ridge National Laboratories, and they found that the AeroSeal machine was 70% more effective and 50% faster than conventional hand sealing technology.
Now, do you see this being applied more in the existing renovation kind of application where people are wanting to save energy and they do this duct sealing? Or, do you see it applied in new construction at all?
We frequently see it applied in new construction. Anytime somebody wants to get their ductwork extremely tight and they want to do it in a more effective and efficient manner, we see it being a good fit for AeroSeal. Many times we're called in retrofit jobs because simply there's no other way to do it. But frequently we're pulled in on new construction jobs because simply we're the most cost-effective way of getting the air ducts down to the new, tighter airflow standards that engineers are specifying today.
Now, I can understand from a residential aspect where you could probably do the entire building all at once. You seal up all the outlets, and then you seal it that way. Now, in a commercial application, you have the duct systems are a lot bigger. Do you segmentize? Do you do them in segments? Do you do them all at once? What's the standard protocol that you've seen being applied?
That's a great question, Matt. What we do is we teach the technician and the contractor in the field how to break down the ductwork into logical segments. The AeroSeal machine has the capacity to do a tremendously large building, but from an implementation point of view, most contractors find it's easier to break it down floor by floor, section by section within a floor to optimize it.
Now, I guess one thing that I would think about is that so I'm putting this sealant into the ductwork. It's fixing the gaps, but at the end of the day, when you're done fixing the gaps, what happens to the rest of the AeroSeal? I mean, is there a flushing process? What sort of particulates are left behind, and do they find themselves in the ductwork?
That's a great question. Typical residential house, to give you an example, there's less than 2 ounces of AeroSeal that are not, there residue remaining in the ductwork when we're done. So in the event that the AeroSeal sealant gets outside the ductwork, it settles out in an interstitial cavity around the ductwork. So it just settles out onto the ground.
Now, does it settle out? I mean, how does it? What is it? It's just like it looks like a dust, or is what? How is it?
It looks like a clear white dust. It's slightly tacky. It builds up the surface level of dust, and it loses its tackiness like a sticky note. In the event that it gets into an occupied space where you don't want it to be sticky, first of all, we can clean the air before it settles out. But if it does settle out onto a hard surface, then it washes up with water or a mild solvent.
Now, what about the AeroSeal that may be still left in the ductwork?
There's very little AeroSeal that's left in the ductwork when we're done. We don't coat the ductwork, so it's pretty much just in the holes and in the S drives and all the nooks and crannies where there's gaps.
Now, is there a post-installation flush that you do, or is it just, once you're done sealing it and you get the test results, and that's it?
Once we're done sealing it, there's no post-installation flush. We just turn on the air handler, turn the machine back to operation, and it's fully operational within an hour or so after the sealing's been done.
So you let it kind of settle out. Okay. Now, as far as what the AeroSeal is made out of, I mean, obviously you don't need the chemical compounds and the mixture or whatever. But generally speaking, what does it contain?
It's a vinyl acetate polymer that's been used as a base in chewing gum and hairspray and water-based paint, so it's extremely benign. It dries very quickly, so there's practically no VOC off-gassing.
Okay, excellent. Now, as far as the energy savings that can be attained with this product, I mean, obviously that has to be a huge market for you. What kind of buildings are you seeing this done in?
We're seeing this applied right across the board in commercial buildings all across the country. Right now, we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth in exhaust systems. We're getting a triple energy savings effect by sealing up the exhaust shaft. First of all, you no longer have to overventilate the building to meet code, so you can lower your exhaust fan energy. Because you're no longer overventilating the building, now you can turn down your supply fan as well. So that's the second level of savings. And third, all the conditioned air that you're exhausting from the space, now you can turn down your compressor energy. And we're seeing a tremendous amount of paybacks. Typically, in a commercial application, AeroSeal pays for itself within 3 to 5 years.
Now, has it been applied in a hospital situation or a lab situation?
We have several places across the country where it's been done extensively at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories, at UC Davis. We've done hospitals like the Cleveland Metro Health and Cal Medical Center have done it in sterilization exhaust systems as well.
Okay. Now, I guess when we talk about the size of the gap, I mean, at what point does the gap become too big?
That's a great question, Matt. At about 5/8 of an inch of a hole, it's probably more cost-effective to hand seal it rather than waiting for the sealant to build up a scab to cover over that 5/8 inch hole.
Now, is there any way to kind of diagnose that before you start just dumping sealant in that gap? I mean, obviously, you've said before that a lot of times you're not going to see all the duct system.
Right.
So, how do you know that you have a big hole that all your sealant might be just like flowing through?
That's a great question, Matt. During the training process, we show the technician how to use the tool to identify big holes rather than some small holes. And so the technician can use smelling senses and his visual senses, and the computer technology is smart enough to identify a big hole as well.
So is there a continual monitoring for when you're, I guess, inputting the AeroSeal into the air? So if you don't see a pressure drop, if it's not getting better, then you might know that, hey, there could be a hole that's not being plugged.
Correct. The AeroSeal machine is controlled by a laptop computer with specific software that's been designed for this application. On the screen, the technician can see the actual real-time leakage in the duct system. So he can tell if the sealing process is continuing or if there's a hole in the system that he needs to address another way. The software is smart enough that if, for example, if ductwork breaks or a block comes out and there's a catastrophic failure in the ductwork, this machine is smart enough to alert him and turn itself off to prevent any further damage.
Now, I guess comparing, this sort of system, obviously it'll save you time. It can save you, it can save you as far as the amount of material being used. How cost effective is it compared to the other technologies?
That's a great example. What we find is that AeroSeal dealers typically recover their investment in less than 6 months. It fundamentally gets them into the business of solving problems that no one else using conventional technology has a way to solve. And because of that, they're able to go in and address problems that building owners historically had to live with for years. So they end up with happy customers, repeat customers, and a whole new revenue stream that they weren't able to tap into before.
Now, are most of the contractors that you kind of you match up with, are they in the duct cleaning business? I mean, is that kind of a common marriage?
Many of our customers are in the duct cleaning business because once you're cleaning the ductwork, then it's a logical extension to seal the ductwork you're cleaning. But it's not an exclusive marriage. We have many mechanical contractors that are primarily mechanical contractors that are doing this because of the benefits that are associated with sealing the ductwork.
And they're seeing the benefits from a manpower standpoint, just being able to accomplish, something that might be in the spec. They do it better, they have it documented, and, it's not like somebody going up there and sealing up joints and accidentally missing one or something like that.
Exactly right. They're able to be much more efficient with their time, and they get a much better result. And more importantly, they get the right solution the first time. We've all been through callbacks, and it's very expensive and time-consuming to test ductwork for leakage, and it's no fun to have to go back and do it 2 or 3 times because you didn't quite meet the spec the first time. AeroSeal will guarantee that you get that spec level the first time because the technician is seeing real-time what the duct leakage is before he turns the machine off.
Now, down the road, I guess, you're thinking about the longevity of the product. Once you've applied it once, is there any sort of degradation due to maybe a future duct cleaning that goes on? I mean, is it resilient to that, or how, when it's a final product, how hard is it? I mean, what kind of static can you push against it?
That's a great question, Matt. We have applied this into commercial buildings with 4 or 5 inches of static pressure in them. It's been lab tested to over 14 inches of static pressure. It is very durable, and it can be used, and the ducts can be cleaned. It's not going to break down the integrity of the seal itself.
So this is basically, it's once you do this, your ducts are sealed.
Once and done. One and done with AeroSeal.
Excellent. I guess anything else that we didn't cover that you can think of?
I would just recommend that your listeners think in terms of identifying problems. This is a solution that maybe somebody has come to accept the fact that they have to live with this problem in their building. Now this opens up a brand new venue for rethinking those building problems that have always existed.
Now, I'll go back one final question. Typically when we're dealing with products, especially like in a public market, there likes to be competition of at least 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
Typically when you're dealing with public bid jobs, how do you address that in the specifications?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, we limit the number of dealers in a market because it is a licensed and patented product. We want to make sure that it gets into the right contractor's hands, and so we're very selective in making sure that the amount of the equipment in the market is the appropriate for the size of the market. There's enough contractors in the market so there can be competitive bidding, but it's not overly saturated so that the pricing makes the product and the application of the product uncost effective for the contractor.
So I mean, I guess basically going back to the point that this is not necessarily a product that gets directly specified, but it's maybe a performance-based application to a specification saying you have to have the duct sealing, of this level, use whatever, you don't necessarily, I guess, spec out a Mazdic or spec out AeroSeal. You just say, hey, get it done to the contractor, and the contractor's the one that chooses the alternative.
Well, we're seeing both right now, Matt. As you know, the trend in the industry is to get the duct leakage tighter, and we're seeing generic trends that are CFM leakage per grill or CFM leakage per duct run. But we're also seeing flat spec AeroSeal. As consulting engineers get exposed more to AeroSeal, and they see the benefits, they see the uniqueness of the product, their building owners want it. And so they're coming back and they're asking specifically for the AeroSeal technology.
Now, typically, obviously, this is maybe something that needs to be done prior to the installation of any sort of pressure monitoring devices or some of temperature monitoring devices in the air system. You want to have those removed and just kind of as a best practices. You don't want to have anything necessarily in the ductwork protruding that you can't get coated, or would it even matter?
Oftentimes it doesn't matter. If you have fire dampers or balancing dampers, we teach you, you don't have to remove them, we just teach you how to work through them. Occasionally there's things in the duct system that we train you that you need to remove. And during the 3-day on-site training process, we come out to the contractor's place of business and actually work alongside them, helping them implement. We would show them how to deal with those types of situations in the ductwork.
So what are you typically going to want to remove in that?
On a VAV box, it might be any sort of pressure sensing device. It might be any sort of thermal sensing device. Anything, if it's coated, even a light residue of sealant, it's going to impede its performance.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, I appreciate your time here. If they wanted more information about AeroSeal, how would they go about doing that?
I would suggest any of your listeners or followers follow us at AeroSeal.com. That's aeroseal.com.
Okay, excellent. All right, Neal, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Matt. Have a great day.
All right, from the floor of the AHR Expo, this is Matt Nelson for HVAC 360. All right, and we're back. All right, thanks again to Neal Walsh. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule. It's definitely fun to get and see such a innovative product. I mean, you really can you see what I mean when I can't help but get excited about this project or product. There's so many applications, especially when you're talking about energy savings and things of that nature. I can see where this can, like I said, can go hand in hand with the duct cleaning business. But I think it's just kind of a innovative product. It's some of these products that you think of it and you go, oh yeah, that would be neat, wouldn't it? And the fact that it actually works, that they've had demonstrated cases, I think is excellent. Obviously, this is some of the things you're going to have to talk to your owners about. It's something that you need to get schooled up on your own before you start recommending AeroSeal all over the place. But I really like the innovative nature of this product. In the fact that you really don't. I mean, it's just kind of the fix a flat easy. It's just kind of it's in there. It takes care of it. Yeah, I can't tell you the number of balance reports I look at, and the numbers just don't add up for whatever reason. And it's understandable because balancing in and of itself is a real art, and if you don't do it correctly, you might see some extraneous results, and they're really they're not all that unusual. But it's really when you get significant gaps in the air that you expect to be coming out of the outlets and the air that's coming out of the unit or the exhaust fan and exhaust ductwork, it really it's disheartening. I mean, it's one of those things that as a commissioning agent, it just kind of drives you crazy because you've inspected it, you've seen a lot of the ductwork being installed, you've seen it being sealed, but there's the stuff that goes in the chases that turns around a corner that you can't quite see around. You can't see everything. And that's kind of I like the fact that you can literally look at the screen and see when you start applying the AeroSeal, you can actually see the improvement. To see these charts and graphs as they would show them was really something that was kind of fascinating. So hats off to AeroSeal, and I think that that's pretty much it for this week. Again, if you want to learn more about it, you can go to aeroseal.com. I'll put the link in the show notes, as per usual. If you want to be updated on some of the shows that go out and other extraneous things that I find on the internets, you can sign up for the newsletter at buildingx.co, or you can follow me on Twitter at buildingx, or just extend an invitation to connect with LinkedIn. I always love to do that with other people. If you have any show suggestions, comments, or some feedback, I'd like to hear that. Matt at buildingx.co. Other than that pretty much wraps up this week. So I really appreciate everybody listening. I hope these things are going smoothly, and I hope you enjoy them. If there's something that, we're starting to get some feedback as far as some shows that people would like to see more of, and we're trying to line those up. Because basically I do this for you. So, if you have a suggestion and you want to know, let's get it up. Let's queue it up. I'll do my best to shake my tree of connections and see what comes out of there and get something lined up just for you. So. I want to thank each and every one of my listeners from all the way from. I know you're out there in Canada land and in Poland on the train. So I really appreciate all of you. And with that, I'd like to remind you, know what you build and share what you know. Bye.